So is now the right time to build a PC? I think not quite yet. We're almost there. There are a few major reasons why you should still wait to build a PC, but a couple people may be able to do so, and let's talk about those reasons coming up now. Hey guys, Tiago with Classical Technology here. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button for more content like this. Let me know in the comments below, are you planning to build a PC at the end of this year? So the end of 2020 has seen an absolute barrage of new hardware releases, both in stock, but mostly stuff that's been unavailable and out of stock. Primarily are going to be the GPUs. People have been super excited for these, but not too much availability. Now people's attention certainly have turned to the RDNA 2 AMD GPUs. So we have to ask the question, is now the right time to build a PC, or should you wait a little bit longer? Of course, remember, we're encroaching on the holiday season, including Black Friday coming up, so there certainly will be a lot of deals, but spoiler alert, don't expect any deals at all on newer GPUs or any of the newly released Ryzen CPUs. While it is true you may be able to find some good deals on previous generation CPUs, maybe even some older or lower end GPUs, don't expect to wait for Black Friday or even the holiday season to see any discounts on anything that was released recently. Just because availability is so low for the new stuff, demand is so high, they have absolutely no reason to discount it any further. So having said that, should you be building a PC now? Well, I think most people should definitely wait. A few people, let's say if you already have your hands on a new GPU like an RTX 3080 or something like that you've been able to get, or you have another GPU that you are already happy with and you don't really think that you want to upgrade, for the most part you should be okay to build a PC now. Just remember, you may be missing out on some great deals on storage, on cases, even on CPU coolers that typically will happen around Black Friday. So if you have some of these components, I think it's mostly okay for you to build now, but I think most people should wait, and I'm going to tell you the primary reasons why. First, it's going to be the GPU launch game is not over yet. AMD's RDNA 2 Big Navi going to be released November 18th, and then of course the 6900 XT is going to come later on December 5th. These GPUs are actually very important because of two primary reasons. First, it's another chance at having availability in stock. Let's not even talk about price or performance yet. Availability in stock is really going to dictate the popularity of these GPUs. People have been so hyped up on the RTX 3000 series GPUs, and after so many people couldn't get them, a lot of people are now looking to AMD to be able to fix their launch issue woes. Of course, we don't know yet how the launch will be exactly. We have heard some AMD partners, like in Europe, say that the RX 68 and 6800 XT are going to be launched in a sort of very limited amounts compared to what the demand is out there. I'm sure AMD will have a decent amount of stock, especially considering that they know the demand from seeing what happened with Nvidia, but I think the demand is so high that anything that they put out is going to look like limited availability, even if they consider it sort of a decent amount of stock. Like even Nvidia has said that they considered the availability in stock of the RTX 3000 series to be sort of what was fair for a normal launch. They were really blindsided by the huge amount of demand, and I think as long as AMD can sort of avoid having that bad of a launch, they should be okay and gain a large amount of market share. So if you're in the market for a GPU, I would say buy the first next generation GPU that you like and that you can actually find in stock, because they're going to be perpetually sold out for the next few months. That means if you find a 3070 and you think you were going to get that anyway, and you were maybe considering an AMD GPU, if you can actually find it for MSRP, I would just get that, because there's a low chance you're going to get any more new GPUs going forward. It's certainly going to be a very difficult stock situation for the next few months. So the first practical bit of advice, if you need a new GPU, I would buy whichever one you can actually find in stock and actually fits your standard, your parameters of what you want. Don't just buy it just because you need to buy it. If it's something like a 3080 and you wanted one anyway, I think it's better to get it, because if you wait until the AMD GPUs come out, chances are those are going to sell out just as fast, and then you're not going to have any more chances at 3080s or anything like that. So I would say the GPU really is the primary focus here. Should you buy an an AMD GPU over NVIDIA? Well, that's going to depend how bad you need a GPU and how the stock situation is. If you can actually find them in stock and you can't find an NVIDIA GPU, I think they look like they're performing very, very nicely. Of course, there are some caveats when you go with an AMD GPU. We don't know yet what their driver situation is going to be, exactly what the performance will be until the third-party benchmarks get released, but they certainly look very competitive and pretty promising so far with NVIDIA. So unless you can snag a 30 series GPU now, I would definitely wait until around November 18th and see if you can get one of those GPUs. After that, it's going to be kind of a free-for-all comparing benchmarks between NVIDIA and AMD, and most importantly, actually finding what's available and what's in stock during the next few months if you're planning to buy sometime at the end of this year or the beginning of the next year. And now that the GPU question is out of the way, what about with CPUs and processors? What should you do? Now, Zen 3 Ryzen 5000 has recently been released. There definitely was some stock, especially of the 5600X. You may even be able to find one now if you kind of look around and wait a little bit. Some of the higher end SKUs, of course, sold out pretty quickly, but I don't think the demand for Zen 3, as good as it is going to be as much as the demand for like the 3000 series GPUs or even AMD's own GPUs, just because processors are kind of a notch down on the cool factor, and people sometimes will prefer to stay with an older CPU and just upgrade their GPU. But if you're building a PC now, I highly recommend that you go with Zen 3 Ryzen 5000, be it even the 5600X. It presents amazing performance and gains, especially if you're going to use it for gaming, over the previous generation Ryzen 3000. Not to mention that against Intel, it's absolutely crushing it. Even something like a 5600X can certainly keep up with some of Intel's higher end gaming CPUs. So certainly one of the primary barriers for the CPU right now will be if you can find the one that you want in stock, but I definitely recommend keeping an eye out for these new Zen 3 CPUs. They really represent a huge leap in performance, especially for AMD, but even if you compare it to Intel, Intel has absolutely nothing to counter them. It's going to be probably sometime next year, in months before Intel even has an answer. Supposedly they're going down back to 8 core, so that's going to be a huge discrepancy between the core counts. Of course, their reason for doing that is they want to have around 18% better IPC, or instructions per clock. That's something that really is important for gaming, as well as the boost clock and the latency. So we're going to have to wait and see, but that's really months away. AMD Ryzen 5000 really has no competition at this point, so I would focus all of your CPU acquiring efforts towards that. I think that's certainly going to be your best bet, and you're going to be considerably more future-proof. Not to mention that the X570 motherboard has PCIe Generation 4. That's going to help as well. Just remember that Ryzen 5000 likely will be the last CPU to actually be able to fit in the AM4 socket. That's on the X570. We can expect next generation to probably require new motherboards, but for the most part, you should be really good with any X570 motherboards. They're going to be compatible with these CPUs mostly out of the box if you have a newer BIOS installed already. Remember, if you have a much older BIOS, it may not boot, even though they're compatible out of the box. You do need one of the more recent BIOS, like maybe the 1.1.0.0, something like that. And remember, X470 will get selective beta BIOS updates, but only in 2021. So if you have an X470 motherboard or anything for the 400 series, eventually you'll be able to use Ryzen 5000, just not yet. You'll have to wait until 2021 for a selective beta BIOS update coming from different manufacturers, and not every motherboard will be covered as well. Hopefully that list will be coming soon. What about everything else? The case, power supply, RAM, those are all items that I think will definitely benefit on Black Friday, as well as going into the holiday season. Even Amazon Prime Day, we saw a lot of pretty decent deals come out on these type of hardware. Just don't expect any of the new GPUs or new CPUs to be on sale or even available. These have been in such limited quantities that nobody's going to discount them. Now, you may be able to find previous generation CPUs, like maybe Ryzen 3000, or even an older GPU, maybe from the 20 series, depending on the GPU you're going for. You may be able to find those for cheaper if you don't really mind having something previous generation, and if you don't need the absolute latest and greatest. But anything that's newer, nobody's going to discount just because it's really not available. But other things like NVMe drives, solid state drives, cases, CPU coolers, even peripherals and monitors, All those things I think really probably will reach their best price coming up at the end of the month during Black Friday and going into the holiday season. So I definitely think if you need basically the bulk of those components, the best time to buy certainly will be close to Black Friday. I think a lot of prices will fall, especially for RAM and things of that nature. So right now, unless you find something that you really need or want and the price seems reasonable, I would certainly think it makes a lot of sense, especially for the computer as a whole, to wait a little bit more. I think the two major things that you should actively be looking for if you're building a whole system, that's going to be trying to find in stock somewhere the new NVIDIA GPUs and maybe trying to get stock of the new AMD RDNA 2 GPUs when they release as well. And also if you're going to go with Zen 3 Ryzen 5000, trying to make sure that you find stock of those as well. I think those are going to be the best components you can get right now, the most future proof, and basically everything's going to have been released in November aside from the 6900 XT. So your biggest fight here really is going to be finding stock. Everything else aside from the GPUs and then a little bit the CPUs, you should be able to find in stock without too much of a problem. The GPU is going to be the most important factor, and then second, the CPU. If you can get those two components and at the right price and it's the one that you actually want, even if it's a NVIDIA RTX 3000 series, then I think you'll be set to build your gaming computer. But if you really can't find the one you want for the budget that you have and they're really out of stock, then unfortunately the time for you to build a computer may be delayed a little bit, maybe December, or it might even have to be sometime early next year when stock levels sort of level out a little bit more. All right guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to be making updates as time goes on with stock and availability on when you should be building a computer, so remember to subscribe for that, and I'll see you guys on the next video.